Hello and welcome. Today what we're going to do is we're going to prepare a very simple bokashi. This can be used for both an agricultural fertiliser but also can be used in composting. So some of the ingredients that we're going to need in the devices or the instruments we'll need, we're going to need molasses. Only a very small amount of molasses, that's a good ingredient there. Also today we're going to use effective microbes, EM number 1, but also I'll show you how to prepare a lactobacillus serum using rice water. Of course we've got water, we're going to use 2 litres of water. I'll give you the instructions in a minute. This water has to be pure water, it can't be chlorinated because the chlorinated water will actually kill off the microbes in there. We've got various measuring devices. A 2 litre measuring device is a really handy thing, or even a 1 litre measuring device. And to measure the smaller ingredients, either a beautiful beaker like this or even just a small sample pot that you can get from most laboratories will do the job. Our main ingredients though, that's going to feed the microbes is bran. This is rice bran. It's been powdered up. We call it pollard in Australia. This we're going to use 10 litres of it. So 10 litres of rice bran, it's part of the dry ingredients. Here we've got soybean meal. So this is the soybean oil has been removed from this, and this is the leftover, been dried out and crushed up soybean meal. That's a vegetable type product. And here we've got chicken manure. Okay, so dried out chicken manure. Both these ingredients will be 5 litres each. We're going to make a total of 20 litres dry ingredients, and we're then going to mix them with the liquid ingredients. The final thing is, after we mix everything, we're going to put it in this plastic container. I've lined it with a plastic bag. We'll squash the materials in and then we'll put the lid on. So now we're going to get the dry ingredients together. So as I said, this is 2 litres. We need 10 litres, so 5 good cupfuls of this, and we're going to put it into our mixing container. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and a little bit more for good luck. Okay. So then we need 5 litres of the soybean meal. So there's 2. 4, and our 1 litre container full will make 5. Here we go. 5 litres of soybean meal, and then 5 litres of the chicken manure as well. Beautiful. 2, 4, and then 1 litre makes 5. That's our total dry ingredients, and what we'll do next is we'll have a look at just putting our wet ingredients together. So what we've got here, in proportion to our 20 litres of dry ingredients, we have to add water at 10%. Okay, so that equals 2 litres of water. We've got 2 litres of rainwater here, and then to that we actually have to add both molasses and EM1. So the molasses is actually food for the microbes that the EM1's going to put into this, and they get added in equal quantities, both 20 mils each. So basically small test tube like this, harder to get the molasses into solution. There we go, a good 20 mils. Now the molasses needs to be very well dissolved into the water. So that's what takes us the time. We want that well dissolved right through the water because that's going to get spread right throughout our dry ingredients. So we're just going to let that soak. And basically 20 mils of the EM solution. is just a capful. Beautiful. So there's our 20 mils of EM solution. So we will keep mixing that to get all the molasses very well dissolved. So what we need to do is we need to thoroughly mix the dry ingredients first. So as you can see, the chicken manure needs to be broken up a bit, and we need to blend very well the soybean meal and the bran, pretty much like mixing up a cake. Yep, like cooking at home. Get yourself right into it, enjoy the experience. Okay. And let's break up these bits of chicken manure, and nice mixing through. This is where you need to put the love into it, you know, really. It's going to be feeding microbes in the soil, it's going to be helping you to break down organic matter, to make compost, and all these beautiful ingredients are going to be food for the microbes that we're getting from the EM1 solution or your lactobacillus serum, which we'll show you at the end of this video how to make. So we'll just get this all really nicely broken up. Other things you could use, instead of the chicken manure, you could use blood and bone or bone meal. Other things you could use beside the soybean meal would be linseed or corn meal. So whatever you've got in your local area, have a look and just use local ingredients. So we've well mixed the dry ingredients now, and now it's time to add our liquid ingredients. Now this is a bit like rubbing the butter into a scone mix or making cement. We need to make a small little well in between and add the water or liquid components bit by bit. Of course, in our liquid components, we've got the EM1 or the lactobacillus serum and the molasses with our water. So we need to rub it right through. You can really get into it, like kneading, making bread. Okay, got that through there. Put some more in to the middle and turn it over, work it through. What I find quite helpful is pick up a bit, rub it in, and this rubbing gets the moisture right through to every particle. Okay, next lot in. Great, so all the dry ingredients have been mixed really well. Now, what we're looking for is the right moisture content. So if you grab a handful of the bokashi, see how it holds together, but at the same time it crumbles very nicely, a bit like soil. So you can get it, it'll hold together really well, but at the same time, a bit of pressure and it just crumbles away. That's the right moisture content. Now, depending on the dry ingredients you use, you may have to add a little bit more water. Especially if sawdust was an ingredient, it soaks up much more of the water. These ingredients, it was right. Just that 10%, the 2 litres of water worked perfectly. So after we've got all the dry ingredients mixed really well, it's time to then place it into our container where the fermentation is going to happen. So what's most important about this is that when we put it in, we actually push it right down into the container, like so. And so we're pushing out all the air. So this is an anaerobic fermentation. So a fermentation without oxygen, and we need to be able to push the air out every layer that we put in. So I've pushed that right down, and I get another layer, pop it in, and then I'm pushing it right to the edges of the container, and we keep building up like that. Very important to push out all the air so the fermentation process happens properly. Okay, so now that we've filled all the ingredients right up as far as we can and we've pushed it all in tightly, we have to seal off the top from air. Remember, this is a preparation, a fermentation that we don't want air. So we push out as much air on the top of the bag as possible. And then we can literally tie that off. And to finish off the process, best to keep it in a dark location, out of direct sunlight. So we'll be able to just, the lid adds an extra dimension to be able to keep the sunlight out, and we'll put that in a correct place. We'll show you that a bit later. Now, next I'd like to show you how to make the lactobacillus serum. So very simply, instead of using the EM product, you can actually capture your own lactobacillus. So there are lots of microorganisms in the air, and that's basically what we're going to do. Now, the easiest way to do it probably in your country is to actually just get rice. So we're just putting some rice into a container. We're then going to add water. Make sure you cover the rice. And just like you do at home, stir the rice around. So we're getting the rice rinse water. So the carbohydrate, the sugary type material, the starches, we're actually going to capture that material and use it to make a lactobacillus serum. So literally, here's the rice rinse water. Great. Now, what's best to do with this is actually get some sort of cover, like a hessian or a cloth, a linen, over this, and you can actually just sit it outdoors but away from the sunlight. So what happens is, in the air there are all these microorganisms, and they're attracted to this rinse water from the rice, and so they start to inhabit this. And then after about, say, 1 week or 5 to 7 days, when you smell the serum, it'll start to smell sour. Then you know you've actually captured lots of microorganisms in here, and they've started to ferment the rice water. Now, you might see that there's a bit of bran floating on top or materials floating on top. You just need to strain them off, and then what you can do is you just take milk and you add milk in the same proportions to what your rice water is. So of course in here is lactobacillus, isn't it? And we're just literally going to fill this container up with the same amount of cow's milk. Great. And the same thing, put your cover back on there so it can still breathe. Now what's going to happen is the milk is going to separate out into two parts. So the fatty content of it is actually going to float on the top. And underneath that fatty content, you'll find a clear liquid. Okay, that's the lactobacillus serum. So what we've done here is, by using the milk, we've just fed lactobacillus and no other bacteria. So that's how we get the lactobacillus serum. And basically the solid material from the top you take off, and then you're left with your serum. Now, how can you use that? Well, you can use that directly instead of the EM. Now, if you want to save it, very, very simple. Same as we chose the molasses for food for the microorganisms in EM for producing our bokashi, we can add molasses in the same proportions as this, and it will turn all of that into a stable product that we can actually put in the fridge. And so the next time we want to make a bokashi, we can actually get it from the fridge, add that small amount, and we can make so many bokashis simply by getting rice water once, after we cook some rice at home. Very simple process, and I hope that you'll try it and save yourself a lot of money. So all we've done now, just to finish off the process, is we're undercover in a shed and we're away from the natural light, no UV, and this will ferment beautifully. Now what will happen is, after about 5 or 6 days, there'll be a beautiful smell that's given off. It's a sort of sweet and sour smell. Once you get that sweet and sour smell, you know that the fermentation is absolutely ready to go. And that's where you can use it. So, how to use it? You can use it directly as an agricultural fertiliser. This amount, this 20 litres, covers 400 square metres, but it needs to be combined into the soil. So you can broadcast it out on the soil, cover it with mulch, or lightly till it into the soil. Or you can use this one to add to your compost at home. So as you put your vegetable scraps into your compost heap, sprinkle the bokashi over the top of the compost and it will compost in a beautiful way. So I really wish you well and good luck.